This is Troy Erstling speaking from Brain Gain. And if you don't travel and get outside of your country, you know that you must be insane. And throughout the next hour, we're going to be on Barefoot Radio because we're going to travel and we're going to show you all how to get around the globe.
Fire your boss, sell your car, travel the world. You're listening to Barefoot Radio with your host, Graham Brown.
Fire your boss, sell your car, travel the world. My name's Graham Brown. This is Barefoot Radio. Today we're heading to Bangalore, India to meet an entrepreneur, a world traveler, a freestyle poet, Troy Erstling. Welcome to the show.
How you doing, Graham? It's great to be here. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm excited to be able to, spread the word about traveling the world and why it's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you've sold me already. But let's talk about Bangalore because I absolutely love India and I love Bangalore too. Where are you based in Bangalore? And tell us a little bit about your surroundings.
Cool. I've been in Bangalore now for about the last 2 years. I live in a small neighborhood called Indiranagar. And Bangalore has, been treating me really well. As you can hear, we got some good horns honking in the background. And Bangalore is, kind of known as the Silicon Valley of India because of the flourishing technology and IT scene, as well as, startups and social enterprises that are, being built here. It's also the home of craft brewing. So it's actually the only city in India where you'll be able to get some good craft beer. And, you got a lot of good breweries popping up. So it makes it for some good entertainment. And in general, one thing that people typically don't really realize about a place like Bangalore is that it's a lot more metropolitan and westernized, than a lot of people realize. And, a lot of people, sometimes picture kind of Slumdog Millionaire, but they don't necessarily picture, UB City, which is a beautiful shopping mall where you see a bunch of Bentleys and BMWs and, Infosys and Wipro. So, it's a city that caught me by surprise, but, I've been here for 2 years and I love it.
Do you think that it's easier for people to come to India and settle into Bangalore? Because if they go somewhere like you mentioned, in Mumbai, it's pretty hardcore, isn't it? It's in your face. How is it down in Bangalore? Is it a bit more relaxed?
Yeah, definitely. Bangalore is a pretty lazy city. Climate-wise, it's much more moderate. It's basically like, I still think in Fahrenheit, but it's basically about, 75, 80 degrees year-round. That's about, constant 25?
Yeah.
If I remember. Yeah.
It's comfortable.
The weather is really good here. You don't get the intense heat. You don't get the intense monsoon season that you would get in a place like Mumbai or Delhi. Delhi's, very polluted. Awesome place, really, really cool architecture, great history, but it's a little bit more intense, especially because of the weather. Mumbai, same thing. Mumbai's got a great energy, awesome nightlife. Things stay open a bit later in Mumbai. Bangalore is, kind of the best of both worlds in the sense of you get good nightlife, really good weather, and you don't have to deal with a lot of the same level of insanity that you would deal with in some of the other cities. So it's definitely, by Western standards, a pretty livable place.
Yeah, insanity is a good word. I think you go to, just look at the traffic in a place like Mumbai. But is it things a bit more orderly down in Bangalore? You've got infrastructure, you've got good roads.
From a city planning perspective, not as much. There's definitely a good amount of traffic. But I think, the good thing is that Bangalore has, made itself into kind of little pockets of good neighborhoods. So you have neighborhoods like Indiranagar, Kormangala, JP Nagar, Whitefield, these areas where, once you're kind of in this area, you can do, basically anything you need via walking. I don't really jump in vehicles that much. I'm able to walk anywhere that I need to in my area. And then if I got to jump into a cab, I do. But Bangalore was originally planned as more of a retirement destination. And then, they had the whole tech park phenomenon pop up where, these large corporate tech IT hubs started popping up. And then from there, a lot of people started coming to Bangalore. So it wasn't really planned for the amount of people that are here. as are many cities in India for that matter.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, one thing I miss about going to cities in Asia, Troy, is that, as you said, like you can't walk around a lot of places. You have to drive everywhere, take a taxi or whatever, and it kind of creates a different vibe, doesn't it? That when you have cities where people can walk around, it's a bit more laid back, it's a bit more communal, it's a bit friendlier, it's a bit less in your face. So it kind of sounds interesting that you can walk around Bangalore, because I absolutely love cities that you can walk around.
Yeah, definitely. I walk everywhere for the most part here. I am fortunate that, I work pretty close to where I live and, I don't have to travel much. But in general, yeah, I walk everywhere and it's nice. I'm also considering buying a scooter, but I am kind of, it's a constant battle of if I actually want to put myself in that situation.
Right. It's insane, isn't it? The traffic, the scooters, like you've got scooters overtaking trucks, overtaking taxis. You've got 3 or 4 people overtaking each other at the same time. Man, if you put yourself out there, good luck to you.
Definitely.
Tell us a bit about the nightlife and the entertainment scene. What goes on in Bangalore?
I mean, it's definitely unique in the sense of back home, especially in New Jersey, New York. I was more used to, you do the whole pregame thing, and then you can go out afterwards and stay out pretty late at night. Here, things close pretty early, so it's kind of the flip side where you'll go out for dinner and drinks, maybe go out to a nice place after that, whether it's getting a good craft beer or going to a nightclub, and then you have after parties after that then go pretty late into the night. So it's kind of flipped in that regard. But it's really cool because there's actually a very big international scene. A lot of expats here. You get a lot of people from, the U.S., U.K., Germany, France, and Spain especially. So there's a pretty good expat community. There's a lot of, Indians here as well that, love to have a good time. So you get a really good mix. It's a pretty fun place overall. Also, from the music and creative arts side of things, especially given, the Indian context with the education system, the creative arts in general weren't really encouraged as a career, for a very long time. And you're now finally start to seeing, people who are approaching music and art and theater as a viable career option. And, you're starting to see kind of a blossoming of, creative talent coming out of India. So there's a lot of really good live music. So yeah, the combination of good craft beer, live music, and good nightclubs, it's made it a pretty fun place to live.
Well, we can't forget as well, you're a freestyle poet. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you think you can produce something for us if I give you a word?
Yes. I mean, I guess we should give people a little bit of context. But yeah, basically, you give me any word, and hopefully it's travel oriented.
All right, I'm going to give you an easy one. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's go with India.
India. I got a bindi on my forehead because every night when I go to bed, I hear horns honking instead of silence, because all these times, all I could really think about was violence. But no, it's a pretty passive place. You don't really got people doing that, getting into your face. You don't got assaults. You don't got any of those things that you really got to worry about. Yeah, you might get somebody in your face who's really trying to scream and shout. But a lot of times that's just a little bit of a rickshaw driver. And once you get inside, he's trying to take you for a ride because he doesn't have change, and you don't have it either. So you know what? I don't really care. I'm going to just kick back, and I don't need to do this either.
Oh, man, you're a genius. Awesome. That's Troy Erstling, everybody. He's available for hire, I'm sure. What a talent. Amazing. I'm impressed. That was a good synopsis of India as well there, Troy.
Yeah, that was fun. It was and it's always impromptu, so I'll never be able to repeat that.
I swear to the listeners, we didn't rehearse that. That was just off the cuff. He didn't even know which word I was going to drop, even though it might have been an easy word. He did it for us. He performed. So let's talk about some of your other talents, Troy. I'm going to talk a bit about your business and why you're in India. Let's come to that in a minute. But hey, there's one thing I want to talk about is how you got there in the first place, because you're a New Jersey boy, right?
Yep.
How on earth did you get to India? That's just opposite side of the world, right? What's going on?
Cool. So it's always been, my goal to try and find international work opportunities and, get outside of the U.S. When I was about 12 years old, my older brother, Corey, had the opportunity to go study abroad in Australia. And when he got back, there was a noticeable change in, the way he talked, spoke, what he wanted to do with his life, a lot of things. So that really, had an impression on me. Um, so when I had the opportunity to go to school at the University of Arizona on the other side of the country. So, it was always my goal to get as far away from home as I possibly could. Parents said no California, so we're going to Arizona. And, while I was there, started taking Spanish speaking courses, and then when I started exploring the opportunity to, study abroad, wanted to put, the Spanish to use, started looking at different, countries that I would be able to, go study abroad in. Once again, actually, my brother Corey suggested Buenos Aires, Argentina. Looked it up. My school actually had a program that went specifically to Buenos Aires. So spent 6 months studying abroad in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And, it was, by the way, Buenos Aires is absolutely amazing. Some of the best food, steak, wine, women. In general, just, a fantastic culture. Really, really cool. Tango. It's a beautiful place. But yeah, while I was there, had the opportunity to meet a bunch of people who were teaching English as a foreign language. That kind of opened my eyes up to, a new way to find work opportunities outside of your home country and kind of get your foot in the door of international experience. They weren't making a ton of money. They were breaking even, but, living a very comfortable lifestyle in Buenos Aires. And that was something that really appealed to me. So when I went back to school to finish up my senior year, said I want to teach English as well. Made that, my sole focus. And shortly after graduating, got my TEFL certification and then started looking for different opportunities to, teach English. Came across South Korea, specifically Seoul, as, a lot of people end up finding, paid round trip, airfare. They get your housing taken care of, a lot of foreigners who go and teach there. So, it seemed like a really good opportunity. And, basically moved to Seoul, South Korea, where I got a job teaching English to 7-year-olds. It was awesome. I absolutely loved it. I was also their music teacher, so I got to teach them about, Michael Jackson and the Beatles and Bob Marley. I got a bunch of little 7-year-olds singing, "Don't worry about a thing." So that's always a lot of fun. It's also where I met my current co-founder. He was actually the teacher who taught next door to me in that school as well. It was, a fantastic experience. I loved it. Seoul was awesome. I was in the heart of Gangnam, Gangnam style, as I'm sure you're familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
And, from there it was a great experience, but wanted to transition away from teaching English, didn't want to be an English teacher, for the rest of my career. So started looking up new international opportunities, reached out to a friend of mine who I met while I was in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I thought that he was in Spain teaching English, and it turned out that he was actually in Bangalore, India, on a fellowship in social enterprise. And, reached out to him, and he's like, "Hey, man, yeah, I've been in Bangalore now for the last year. It's been awesome." And that was all he kind of told me. I looked up the program that he was on. Seemed like a really good way to transition my career away from teaching English. Later found out that fellowship in social enterprise is kind of a fancy word for, an unpaid internship that I had to pay for. Yeah. But in general, it was, I applied for it. I got in. I got placed in Bangalore. And, I was very fortunate to be placed with, a company that gave me some really interesting work. And I was working with one company that was known as the National Entrepreneurship Network. And they basically focus on entrepreneurship education at the university level. So for kids who still haven't graduated from school and want to launch their own ventures. And they've been doing that for about 10 years. And they said, we want to expand to other emerging economies. So they had me basically study entrepreneurship throughout Southeast Asia. So it was fascinating research where I, had the opportunity to really learn a lot about what was going on from, a startup and entrepreneur perspective, throughout Southeast Asia, which is, by the way, a blossoming and booming area right now, but we can go into all that stuff later. And then was very fortunate also to meet the two founders of a company known as Zoomcar. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Zipcar in the U.S. and some other car sharing models around the world. But yeah, basically, the Indian car rental market was 90% chauffeur driven. So you really couldn't rent a car and drive it yourself. Huge market opportunity. Two guys, who decided to drop out of business school and move to India, launch their own company. So obviously, that really resonated with me. They were very early stage at that time. And they basically said to me, hey, we don't have anybody handling any of our digital marketing initiatives. If you want to, take a crack at it, by all means, have fun. So they kind of put me in charge, digital marketing. Started off with, some blogging and content writing. Moved into some more, social media advertisement. At the end of my 6 months, they, liked the work that I was doing. They hired me on board full time, and I continued to work with them. They raised about $10 million throughout the time that I worked with them. Stayed with them for about a year in total. And then, basically, from there, I guess to kind of transition it into what I'm doing now.
Cool. Well, let's hold off on that a minute, because
cool.
I want to talk about what you're doing now and go into that a bit more detail. I mean, it's an amazing story that you have. You've had some amazing experiences, amazing travels. I mean, through and through, you're an entrepreneur. You are a teacher as well. You love communicating with people and you love travel. My question to you, Troy, do you think being an entrepreneur and being a traveler, do you think there's a big overlap there? Does it sort of the same kind of things, or just tell me a little bit about that?
Definitely. There's a lot of lessons that I've learned from traveling, like life lessons of traveling that have been directly applicable to, starting my first company. The most notable one is definitely, learning how to live on a budget and, learning how to, stretch your money and stretch your dollar effectively. While traveling, that's something that you just pick up because you want to keep traveling. The more frugal that you are, the longer that you're able to continue exploring the world and the more things that you're able to do with that money. And then especially when you're a bootstrapped company and you're using your own money to get things off the ground, that same mentality, comes into play with, being frugal with your money and, being highly analytical with where you want to be spending it and what you want to be doing with that money. So that's always the first thing. Second thing is, being adaptable, and just being able to not get stressed out by uncertainty. In traveling, especially in the beginning, you're faced with constant uncertainty. You're in new environments where people don't speak your language and you just have to adapt. You have to figure out ways of continuing to move, continuing to get things done, whether it's, buying a train ticket or, just, ordering your food or trying to communicate what you want to order to begin with. So from that standpoint, especially when starting out, you need to be adaptable. My advisor always tells me that, startups in a lot of ways are just, an experiment in learning, and you got to take all those learnings and then based on those learnings, you adapt. And, you just got to be able to learn as fast as you can and continue to adapt. And, I think that traveling definitely, helped me to be adaptable. And, I'm pretty confident now that, you could put me anywhere in the world and I'll be able to, figure out how to get around, figure out what to do, and, how to, be able to effectively get things done. And I would have 100% not been able to have learned that, without having traveled. And, I could list off another, 10 reasons easy, of different life lessons that I've learned. Also communication,
well,
just being able to.
We'll just hold it there. Let's go back to that last point because I think that was a really interesting one, Troy, about the adaptability, the living on the edge, the living with uncertainty, the learning process as well. Because isn't this great? We live at a time now where what were previously two separate worlds can now come together, i.e. being an entrepreneur and travel. 10 years ago, even, maybe even 5 or 6 years ago, it was very much separate worlds, right? You either went into a startup in the valley or a startup in your home city, whatever, or you got a good job, or you traveled for a year or two and came back and, went back to the real world. But now we live at a time that due to technology, but more importantly, available role models, available ideas, people can look around and say, hey, look, this is possible, right? I can do this. I can set up a business. Look, this guy's living here in India. It's possible. It's doable. I can do this now, right? So we live at a really exciting time where you can bring these two things together. And I just think I see, like you said, Southeast Asia, what's happening in Asia, even in South America as well. It's just amazing what's happening.
Yeah, definitely. It's beautiful. It's really, it's almost like you can live in two different worlds, where you see this like digital nomad community, for example, and you see what's going on in Bali. There's a place called Hubud in Bali where, they're basically teaching people how to, live on a beach and start internet businesses.
Yeah.
So it's like you can almost live really slow in your physical life, and live on the beach and, have a pretty relaxed lifestyle. But in like the digital world, you could be moving at light speed, having a high growth business. And that's never really happened before. So yeah, I agree, man. It's a fascinating time that we're living in right now.
For sure. Let's talk about your business, because Brain Gain, you're filling a really interesting space. You're in a really interesting niche at the moment. This sort of brings everything together. Brain Gain, tell us what it's about first, and we'd look at the story behind it.
Cool. So, as I was saying before, I was working for a startup here in India, and throughout at that time it was about 3 years of living and working abroad. And I continually had friends of mine who were reaching out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever it might be, just continually asking me, how do you keep finding these opportunities to work abroad? I look online and all I see is teaching English and volunteer work. You're working for a startup. That sounds really interesting. Could you help me find something similar? And, at that point in time, it was, really good timing between, my role at, Zoomcar was kind of, becoming a little bit more, content heavy in the sense where, I wasn't growing as much. And I knew that this is what I've been passionate about for a very long time. And I've always wanted to help people find opportunities to live, work, and travel abroad. And I was like, what? I can definitely find people jobs here. I think this is, the right timing to do this. So with that in mind, I decided to quit my job at Zoomcar and make it my full-time job to help people find international work opportunities. And, at that time, basically it was like, okay, I'll start off in Bangalore, a lot of good startup companies here, and let's see what we can do. So basically started approaching companies and, asked them, what are your hiring needs? What type of people are you having a hard time hiring for? All sorts of things like that. And, discovered that there were some pretty distinct talent buckets that companies were looking to hire for, specifically sales and marketing, design, and tech talent. And, from there, basically companies were like, I'm open to this. This sounds interesting. We'd love to be able to build a diverse team. And then, on my side, I was like, I know that there's people like myself who are looking for these type of opportunities and, want to work abroad and gain, most importantly, career relevant experience where they can, build these skills that are actually translatable to future, career options that will be there for them. So yeah, basically we've now been operational since about January. And, we focus primarily on placing people with, both internships and full-time job opportunities ranging in, anywhere from 3 months to 1 year, focused on, as I said before, sales, digital marketing, design, data science, software programming, things along these lines. We also handle your visa, housing, medical insurance, and general acclimation and support. And I place a very large emphasis on that because, as you've seen before as well, moving to a new country with no support system and no friend network, it's a scary, thing to do. And, when you're just placed at a company and they're telling you to handle your own housing and you don't know where you're going to go or how you're going to meet people, it's a pretty daunting task to put forth in front of someone. And yeah, there are people who can definitely handle that and will, rise to that occasion. And I always, I encourage that. I love that. But there's definitely a lot of people who kind of want that support system, and especially the parents, right? You've got to sell us to your parents too.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. You don't want to be coming home because you couldn't sort out your housing. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Because a lot of people want to travel. A lot of people want to get involved in the excitement of the startups and get the experience. But it's such a big gap between that and actually getting out there. I know there's a lot of literature out there at the moment about digital nomads and getting your backpack on and getting out there. But still, I think there's a big gap that a lot of people think, well, look, I just need somebody to give me a foot up, get started, settle me down, and then I'm away. Because, moving to a foreign country, and you've done this a number of times as well, it sounds easy, but, once you're into the 4th or 5th week and the novelty wears off, it starts to get a hard grind. It's a real test. That's what makes your character.
Yeah, I agree. And especially, in that first month when, you're trying to focus on your work and you're trying to focus on the company that just placed you there, and you got to be handling all these other things. It's hard to catch yourself up to speed and, really perform to the best of your abilities when you have to worry about all these other stressful aspects. And I really believe that, those first, that first week to 4 weeks really makes a huge difference in terms of your overall experience and comfortability.
Yeah, fantastic. Hey, listen, if I was graduating today or just graduated, a few years out the gate, or thinking about graduating, this is the kind of opportunity that I would have loved back then. And we talked off air about this, and we both had taught English. You went to Korea, I went to Japan. I was lucky because there were those schemes available, which are really sort of easing you in to what is quite a risky opportunity, if you were to do it on your own. But to have these schemes to take you there is fantastic. I think if I was in that position now, I'd take it. Get me to Asia, Troy. That's 1/3 of, India and China together, those markets, that's 1/3 of the population. Get me out there and give me some experience in a startup. That, I think everybody should be taking these kind of opportunities. I mean, they'd be dumb not to, because, 20 years from now is going to be, even 10 years from now is going to be a very different workplace, right? You've got to get out to Asia, you've got to get the experience.
Definitely. I mean, that's the number one reason that we get from a lot of these candidates. I had one of the employers who we hire for the other day tell me, he's like, I've been really happy because a lot of, every time that I ask them, why do you want to move to India? Why is this something that appeals to you? He's like, 9 out of 10 people are telling me I want to get international experience. And, employers value international experience. And the fact that I get to travel and work at the same time, it seems like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, the fantastic experience. So what sort of experiences do people get out of it beyond obviously the skills that they learn in the workplace? What does it do for their character?
Yeah, I mean, like we said before, the skills that you learn from traveling and getting outside of your comfort zone. I wrote a blog post on this a few weeks ago, and I call it growing in dog years, because in the same way that a dog ages 7 years in the same year that you theoretically age 1, when you get outside of your comfort zone and you try these new experiences and you force yourself to basically grow, it's almost like you're growing at a hyper speed and you're growing faster, you're learning more. And, it's such a valuable growth experience because, you're not just sticking to what other people have done. You're placed in situations on a day-to-day basis that force you to think on your feet and adapt and, develop actual real life skills, whether it's communication, whether it's, just being able to be self-sufficient and take care of yourself. It's the benefits are endless. And I mean, that's not even including the actual work side of things where, in a lot of ways, the companies that we work with, one thing that I place a lot of emphasis on is, giving you a lot of responsibility. If you take an entry-level position, most times you're working at a, very large organization where it's hit your numbers, hit your metrics, and, prove that you can stay here for a year. And other than the fact that you got a year-long, position on your resume, your growth is still pretty limited.
Yeah.
Whereas here, the amount of responsibility that you can take on is, it's awesome. One of the girls that we have placed here, she was telling me, she's like, I'm basically the head of marketing right now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And she probably stepped up to that as well. Exactly. Yeah. It takes, a bit of openness on both sides. You've got to be open to want to take on the responsibility, and the startup or the company has got to want to stretch you a little bit as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really cool experience that, like we said before, kind of marries that, work and travel, which is normally kind of an either or. It's a catch-22. I either need to go after my career or I need to go travel.
Yeah.
So we're happy to be able to kind of eliminate that choice for that matter.
That's fantastic. Hey, I had on a few weeks back, I had Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist, and we had a good conversation about this subject, really, about the future. And we talked about Jim Rogers, some of the things that he said. I don't know if you're familiar with Jim Rogers, the investor. And his basic whole approach is that, hey, look, the workplace, if not today, but in the next few years, is going to change, significantly. The kind of skills that people need are not so much the skills which are now oversupplied So, lawyers, MBAs, everybody's getting an MBA or going to law school or, an MA, an MSc. Everybody's getting them. So, basic supply and demand means the price of those skills is going to go down. But the price of the skill that the business world needs is this, and that is this boundaryless mindset that you can go to somewhere like India and do business with people in China and import materials from Bangladesh and export stuff to the US. That requires a very specific mindset, which is rare in supply, but it's extremely valuable in this day and age, right? And I think that what you're doing is you're providing a bridge for people to learn that, to get out there and become boundaryless, to learn what the future really needs. I think it's fantastic.
Amen. Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's great. I've really enjoyed having you on the show, Troy, and I enjoyed your little freestyle poetry rap there earlier. A man of many talents. What's on the agenda? Are you going to be in India for the long term? How's things shaping up for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, right now things have been going really well. We just brought in, since January, we brought in about 15 people. We're anticipating another 5 to 10 people by September. Continuing to move things forward in that regard. I'm probably going to go back to the U.S. for a few months from October to January. One of my best friends is getting married, so very excited for that. And then, continuing to expand the business. We recently started recruiting for some companies in Malaysia as well, and actively exploring, different geographies around the world. So it's exciting times. We're getting really positive responses from people, both from the employer and the employee side, and excited to see where we can take this and scale this in the future.
How do we start the journey, Troy? How do we get on board? Where do we go? Give us a URL.
You can email me directly at Troy@BrainGain. That's BrainGain.co, and visit the website at braingain.co. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Going to be pushing out a lot of cool content. We got a really nice infographic on the way. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. Always happy to, talk. And even if you're not, directly interested in these positions, I am just hyper passionate about helping people get outside of their home country. So whether it's teaching English, whether it's, going through us, whether it's just trying to get an understanding of the lay of the land, resources for digital nomad communities, you name it. I'm happy to help people, and I'm just a big supporter of anybody who wants to explore the world. So, hopefully we get as many people inspired as we can. And as my brother Ross says, I'm on fire with desire, and anybody who I touch, I will inspire.
A man is on fire. Hey, that's Troy Erstling, everybody. Entrepreneur, world traveler, freestyle poet out in Bangalore, India, helping you get out to the Asian markets, get some experience in the startup. Go and check it out, braingain.co. Hey, Troy, thanks a lot for joining us. A real inspiration.
Thank you very much as well. It was a pleasure.
Barefoot Radio. Want to know how to live the location-independent lifestyle? Then find out more at www.barefootjournal.com.